Steve Shaw comment. Any thoughts on early open discussion for Lake Ontario bass?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm lost, Steve. That's a really, really good question. So there's been a proposal put into the government for a couple different options that pertain to the bass fishing season on Lake Ontario. Now, the interesting thing is, Bruce Tufts at the Tufts Labs in Queen's University has proposed this to the government that we have a catch and release season. It's been a while since I read the document, but my understanding it was a catch and one of the options was a catch and release season in May, and then the season would be off limits during the spawn, and then it would open up again in July 1st. I think they were going to open it up. That was one option. That's a really tough one for me because I work in tourism, so the majority of my business is on Lake Ontario chasing trophy smallmouth. So I understand protecting the fish. There's a lot of people that don't practice good conservation like some of us, but they are within their legal rights to catch and keep fish. So when we have high water and we have like a really late spring, what happens is it pushes the spawn. Like last year was a very, very rare year where there was fish on spawning beds in August. So when you have situations like that, the fishery really can potentially be damaged with people catching fish on beds, and that's the theory. That's the working theory behind why they want to postpone fishing. But from a tourism perspective, there's a lot of business owners and motels and lodges and cottage resorts and little mom and pop shops that rent out boats and cottages all along that St. Lawrence River and Lake Ontario for people that really look forward to going bass fishing. So if the season, closes between I think it was like April 15th to July 1st, in and around that range, right, which kind of takes the whole June fishing out of the equation. I think that was the dates. You'd have to all the information's online. There was two options that they proposed to the government, but at first I thought this is a great idea, and I shared it to protect the fishery. But then I spoke to another one of my peers, and he called me and he says, "Did you look at this side of it? The tourism impact and how it'll impact your business and how it will impact. Could you imagine not being able to bass fish on Lake Ontario for a year?" So now what they really, really need to do is look at how the state of Texas regulates their big bass fishing. Honest to goodness, it's the greatest. During the spawn, they have a catch and release season. Catch a fish, it goes right back in the water. And wow. That's because they have a slot size, Andrew. So a fish that's between 16 and 24 inches has to go back. But every Texan with a Texas state fishing license is allowed to keep one over 24 inches. And that's just to protect people's rights and freedoms if they were to catch a trophy of a lifetime. If they were to catch that 12-pounder, right? Yeah. Most bass fishermen would put that back in the water. Most bass fishermen would practice good conservation and put it in. But there's people that, I tell you what, I fish with, 600 people every year, and the old guard is still there, and there's still people that grew up believing that I'm going to eat the big one and let the little ones grow up, which in bass fishing is the complete opposite, right? The big ones are the females. The lakes need them to survive. But if we had a catch and release season, it would stimulate the economy. It would grow the sport. It would allow bass fishermen that have massive, massive investments to be able to go and enjoy their investments on lakes in the spring. Could you imagine being able to go bass fishing in April and June?
I would love it.
It'd be amazing. Imagine catching schooling pre-spawn fish. No bass fisherman in Canada that's never traveled to the U.S. in the spring would even have the slightest idea what that's like. All those times you were walleye fishing and you set the hook into a giant largemouth bass on a weed line in April, you're like, whoa, where did this thing come from? Now imagine you could take a picture of that fish and then release it right then and there. And I honestly think that we need to have some kind of slot system put in place. Like I've seen the benefits a slot has had on reservoirs in the U.S., you know, and I've seen how tournaments have been able to adapt around the slot. Like they could never have a major bass fishing tournament on Lake Fork for years. The Elite Series couldn't go there because in order to bring your fish up on stage, most of those fish are going to be in that 16 to 24 inches. But now with live weigh-ins and social media and having an official on the boat to weigh your fish for you, the Elite Series has got to go to Fork. You know, we got to watch Corey and Chris Johnson fish Lake Fork. We got to watch, you know, Scott Canterbury and all the pros and Brandon Cobb. You know, we got to watch them at Fork, and we never got to do that before because it was a very, very well managed and protected reservoir. So, you know, it's interesting, and I know I'm comparing largemouth reservoir fishing to smallmouth, but I'm going to tell you guys, whoever's watching, this is the most important thing. This place is in our backyard, Lake Ontario. So when when I ask people this all the time, when you think of a trophy bass fishing destination, if you were to go on vacation, you know what, Andrew? I'm going to ask you right now. If the winter time or the spring came and you were going to travel to go bass fishing, what's the first lake that pops into mind where I want to go catch trophy bass?
Best trophy bass where I would go would probably be up.
No. Now listen, you're traveling, right? You're going on a destination somewhere. You're going on vacation somewhere in the winter time or the spring.
Alabama,
perfect. Okay, so that would be a bucket list trip, right? Go to Gunnersville or go to Okeechobee. For guys like us, that's like our dream because we see it on TV. We see Scott Martin catching the 10-pounder in Okeechobee, you know. We see the guys catching giants on Amistad and Falcon. You know where those guys dream about going fishing in the summertime? You know where their bucket list is? Lake Ontario, St. Lawrence River. And we don't have enough friggin' smarts here as a community to recognize that that's a trophy fishery that's sought after by people all over the world. Like, I talk to guys from South Africa and they're like, man, you fished the St. Lawrence River for smallmouth? Oh my God. Like that's I fish with people from Japan, people from Australia, people from Great Britain, people from all over the US. Because when it's 120 degrees in Arizona and the guys want to go away for a week to catch bass in 85, 90 degree weather, they want to come up here and catch 6-pound smallmouth on Lake Ontario. So, you know, it's one of the greatest fisheries in the world, you know, and we really need to protect it. So,